This story from the Devi Bhagavatam is in three parts. The story is about a sage called Chyavana, his wife, and the Ashwin twins. The Ashwin Kumaras or the Ashwin twins were the sons of Surya, the sun god, and his wife Sanjana. Surya married Sanjana, the daughter of Vishwakarma, the divine architect of gods. After being married to the sun, Sanjana could not bear the heat of her husband and abandoned him. She ran away and roamed in the forest of the northern Kuru kingdom in the form of a mare. She performed severe penance in the forest to gain control over Surya's heat. After Surya discovered Sanjana's disappearance, he located her in the northern forests and met with her in the form of a stallion. Soon after, Sanjana gave birth to the Ashwin twins. The Ashwins are deemed to be the physicians of God, and they often help, heal, or rescue mortal human beings and bring them back to life. They are also horsemen and ride a chariot. It is said that the dawn, Ushas or Usha, breaks when the twins harness their horses and follow her into the day. They ride a chariot that allows them to be quick and to travel to a number of places which is needed to fulfill their role of rescuing people. Let us now listen to the story of sage Chyavana. There was once a kingdom ruled by a king called Sharyate. The king had many sons but only one daughter called Sukanya, who was exceptionally beautiful. Everyone loved the sweet smiling princess. Not very far off from the city there was a beautiful clear water lake. Stone steps were built around to walk into it. Swans, ducks, and other birds played in its waters, which was filled with a variety of colorful lotuses in full bloom. The bees hummed all around. Trees and colorful flowering plants, creepers, encircled the lake. Peacocks danced and cuckoos sang, beautifying the scenery even more. Close to the place there was a sacred grove covered by trees wherein sage Chyavana, the son of Brigu, stayed. Thinking the place lovely and free from any obstacles, the sage took a seat there, and collecting all his thoughts within himself, he started practicing tapasya or meditation. Restraining his senses, he constantly meditated on the goddess Bhagavati for Sat Chit and Ananda, meaning truth, consciousness, and bliss of the ultimate reality. While he was thus meditating, an anthill grew up covering his body, and creepers started to grow around, so much so that the devout sage was covered entirely and looked like a heap of earth. Once the king Sharyate wanted to spend time in the artificial wilderness and came there to the lake with his wives, children, and his entire retinue. Everyone played around the lake and in its waters. Princess Sukanya too played with her companions and picked flowers from here and there. Dressed in ornaments, she walked to and fro, her anklets making a beautiful tinkling sound, till she came to the ant-hill of Chyavana Rishi. She sportingly sat close to the ant-hill and instantly saw something shining inside, like a couple of fireflies. "What is this?" she thought, and wishing to take it, she picked up 2 thorns and pricked the shining objects. Thus impelled by fate, the princess sportingly pierced the sage's eyes, but no sooner did she do it than she suspected something was wrong, and thought to herself, "What have I done?" Agitated, she ran from the spot. His 2 eyes pricked, Chyavana Muni instantly gave vent to sorrows and remorse upon being restless with pain. No sooner did this happen than the king, his ministers, soldiers, elephants, horses, and camels, so much so all the beings that were there, fell ill with a strange disease. With the turn of events, King Sharyate was pained and became very anxious when all his soldiers came to the king and complained. The king thought over the cause as to why this had happened, and thinking deeply, he spoke to his retinue thus: "Who amongst you has done a heinous act? This could be a curse. On the west side of the lake, the great Maharshi Chyavana is practicing tapasya in the midst of the forest. I think someone has mischievously troubled the ascetic, blazing like a fire. That must be why we have come down with this disease. The high-souled aged son of Bhrigu has become specially proficient in his asceticism and has become supreme. I surely think someone must have injured him. Our current state clearly shows that it is a punishment for injuring him." Hearing this, the soldiers said, "O king, none of us has committed any mischief by word, mind, or body." He then turned to his friends and relatives and asked the same. The princess, seeing her father and his soldiers sorrowful, thought of her piercing the two objects with a thorn and spoke thus: "O father, while sporting in that forest, I came to see a very hard ant-hill covered with creepers and shrubs, wherein I found two holes. In these small openings I saw two shining objects like fireflies, and thinking them to be so, I pierced them with thorns. I then heard a faint sound from the ant-hill. 'Oh, I am killed,' it said. When I took out my thorns, I found them wet with blood. 'What have I done?' I asked myself, and was thunderstruck with fear. But I could not know what I pierced in that ant-hill." Hearing these gentle words of his daughter, King Sharyate thought that the act had no doubt insulted the sage, and at once went towards the sacred grove. Upon locating the ant-hill, he broke it to reveal the sage that was covered in it. He was suffering and aged, but continued to practice tapasya, although very much in pain. The king prostrated flat before the sage, and then with folded hands praised him with hymns and humbly said, "O great one, my daughter has injured you unknowingly while sporting. I humbly request you to forgive her. O high-souled one, I have heard that ascetics are always void of anger. Therefore I beg you to forgive my daughter of an offense done in ignorance, and thus show your kindness." On hearing the king's words and seeing his humble and distressed nature, Maharishi Chyavana said, "O king, I never was angry. Your daughter has pained me, and yet I am not angry, nor have I cast a curse on her. I am in pain with my eyes being pricked, but being a bhakta of the Devi, I know that it is her power that has caused you to be troubled and sorry. For who can acquire happiness in this world after committing an offense to a bhakta of the Devi? But, O king, on one hand I am worn out with old age, and on the other I am deprived of my eyes. What shall be my means now? Please say who will take care of this blind old man." The king said, "O sage, kindly forgive my daughter. I have many persons who will constantly take care of you and serve you." Chyavana said, "O king, I have no one else, and I do not think that your servants will take care of me. If you think it your duty to please me, then upon my word, give me your lotus-eyed daughter to serve me and take care of me. She will have to serve me while I am engaged in meditation. If this is done, all the troubles that are now with you and your army will disappear. I am an ascetic observing vows, and you will not incur any sin by granting my request. So think carefully before you decide." Upon hearing the sage's words, the king was deeply troubled and could not say a word in reply. How can I give my beautiful and gently nurtured daughter to this old and blind sage, and to live in this harsh and dense forest? He thought. How will my fair eyebrowed daughter pass her days happily here with the aged sage? Thinking thus, he absent-mindedly returned to his palace to consult with his ministers. O king, what shall we say in this critical juncture? How can you bestow your exceedingly beautiful daughter to an ugly, unfortunate ascetic? The ministers said. At that moment Sukanya came forth and said, You are sad and troubled because of what I have done. Please do not grieve. I will willingly go and console the sage, give myself up at his feet and serve him. But her father refused to listen to her and said, My daughter, the Chyavana Muni is blind, aged, and of a worn-out figure. But you are a mere girl. How will you be able to serve him in that dreadful forest? You are like Rati in beauty and loveliness. How can I bestow my daughter to an aged, worn-out blind Muni for my own pleasure? I will never do it. Time and again they tried to convince each other, and finally Sukanya said, I have to marry him to save our kingdom from his wrath. So please let me do my duty unto the people of this kingdom. I do not have any inclination towards all the pleasures here. My heart is now set. Therefore, O father, I will marry him and act according to his liking. The king and his ministers were amazed at hearing these words. With a heavy heart the king then took her to Chyavana. Going before him, he bowed down and said, O Lord, please accept my daughter in marriage. So saying, the king betrothed his daughter to Chyavana. The Muni took the daughter for his service, but refused other dowries that the king presented. The sage was thus pleased, and immediately the king, his family, and entire retinue got over their disease. Seeing this, the king's heart became filled with joy. Sukanya then gave away all her ornaments and rich clothes in exchange for a simple life as a wife of a sage. With a heavy heart, her parents, ministers, and the rest of the folks left her to return to their kingdom. When the king Sharyati departed, the virtuous lady devoted her time in serving her husband by cooking, cleaning, and taking care of him for many days to come.